for another edition of the online dinner party, and we've got some amazing guests that'll be joining us on today, as we usually do during this dinner party. So we'll be learning about them and seeing what they've got going on in their life, whether it's in the world of music, whether it's in the world of film, or whether it's in the world of coaching, or a number of other places that these people may be coming from. You know, folks are going back to work and school. I know that school started back for a lot of kids this past week and everything like that. A lot of people were returning back on Monday after beginning the new year and all along those lines. So the kids are getting back into the swing of things. People are getting back into the swing of things in their work environments as well. And we'll be talking about that here on this show. And there is this rumor going around, and I've got to ask Wayne about this rumor because I don't know how it is where he's at and all along those lines. But I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and there's this rumor that it's wintertime. But last time I checked, the temperature today was 71 degrees, which seems much more spring-like than it does winter-like, and all along those lines. And it definitely is supposed to be this way for a few days and all along that kind of way. So even though we're in the middle of football season, and there's definitely the college football playoffs that are taking place this weekend with teams like Miami and Indiana and others that are engaged in that Final Four activity. And then we've got the wild cards in the NFL, and some of those will be in snowy environments and all along those lines. But here in North Carolina, we're having some great weather. I got the pleasure to go work at my Cultural Arts Center, the Hayti Heritage Center, on this past Sunday, because there is a church that meets there regularly. They meet in a classroom because it's a small church as of now, even though that is a converted sanctuary for one of our historic churches, St. Joseph's AME, and all along those lines. But this particular group has just a small congregation. So right now they're meeting in one of our classrooms. And this coming week, I'll get to see the Quilters on Saturday, as well as the jazz band that meets there regularly, and also see some other folks that'll be coming in as well. So lots going on at the Hayti Heritage Center as it's getting ready to begin its 2026 season. And Brandy Younger, a harpist, will be the first performer, and that'll be 2 Wednesdays from this Wednesday that we're in. So she'll be the first artist that'll be appearing in the season. It'll also include Branford Marcellus, Keith Knight, the illustrator, as well as Taisha Coates, the author, and a number of other folks as well. So that first concert will be on the 21st, 2 weeks from today. So definitely folks are getting that building all polished up and ready for the first presentation of the 2026 season, because this year we'll have an actual full season of activities going all the way until I think October or November and all along those lines. And there are some exciting acts that people are looking forward to seeing. Some of those I mentioned, such as Branford Marcellus will be there, and also Monet Marshall, who is a local person in the entertainment field. She's done some drama. She's also done some singing, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. So she's definitely multi-talented, and she'll be doing a presentation. And Yazara, who will be making a return to the area, who is a neo soul singer. So there's a lot of exciting entertainment that you can go and check out if you go to the website www.hayti.org. But I'm going to bring in Wayne Pratt and bring in some of my other guests and see what they've got going on in their lives and all along those lines. And we'll be learning about them. And I'm going to see if it's as nice weather-wise where you're at as it is here in North Carolina. Because like I said, it is a 71-degree temperature today, and I think it's supposed to be nice, maybe even warmer, maybe even 74, 75 tomorrow on Thursday. And I have to go to a meeting and all along those lines. So I won't mind getting out and about in that kind of weather. So I forgot where you're at, Wayne, but share a little bit about your life story and what you've got going on, and then we'll bring in some of our other folks as well.
Well, I'm in Canada, and yes, it is winter. It's about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So no, 71 is on the inside, not on the outside.
Okay.
And one thing, Mark promised me snacks. So I don't know how to download them on the internet. I keep pounding refresh, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, you keep hitting refreshment. Nothing happens when you hit a refreshment and all along those lines. But I know you've got this coaching business that deals with the freshly brewed coaching. So tell me what makes the freshly brewed versus just regular old coaching? Because a lot of people are life coaches and all along those lines. So tell us a little bit more about freshly brewed coaching.
Well, thank you very much. I've been at this now about 10 years, and I found out only the C-suite really understood it. The CMOs, the CEOs, the CFOs, the COOs, they all understood coaching. But the guy at the hardware store, if you asked him about coaching, he thinks it's about getting his 9-year-old being better at soccer. So my goal was to literally present as if it was in a coffee shop. And we actually made it's called a business fable, where we actually tell a story in the Freshly Brewed Coaching. And we actually we created characters, a bit of real life, but who actually took the course from us. There was an electrician, there was a banker, there was a clothier, there was a barista. And these people got to see it because they were in the coffee shop. And so that's Freshly Brewed Coaching.
So you did it in a coffee shop, and all along those lines, I'm bringing in Will because I know he's got a limited amount of time and everything like that, but he's a musician here in the area, and all along those lines, and he's done a lot of great music work and everything like that. So how are you doing, Will? We've got Brad, who's a coach and a life coach. As you just heard, he's been doing coaching in coffee shops. And I remember that there was a coffee shop that was very popular here. We've had a couple of coffee shops that were popular. There was Blue Coffee. And then, of course, there was the BU here in Durham, North Carolina, which is now a sports bar and everything like that. So the BU is now gone from being a popular jazz and music venue to being a sports bar that is trying to cover not just the regular sports that you would expect, which is very male dominated, but also some of the women's sports as well. So they're making a point to carry some of the women's soccer game and the women's basketball game at that particular sports bar that is in the old BU location.
Which I miss, by the way, because I used to play there, and we played there. I had kind of a jazz group and played there a bit, and I was sorry to see that it went away. It was the way of jazz venues.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Will.
What's that?
I love your hat.
Well, that's because you wouldn't like my head, so I had to put a hat on it. Lesser of two evils. Thank you.
Lesser of two evils and everything like that. Will, you've been doing a lot in the music environment and everything like that. We got another musician and a filmmaker going to be joining us very shortly as well. But what got you into music? Because like I said, we've got Wayne, who's a coach and everything. But what got you first into music, and what drew you into the jazz realm?
Well, my best friend got me into the music business because he decided to pay me with a secondhand guitar rather than the money he owed me. That's how I got in. And he gave me a guitar, and I was really pissed. And it sat in the corner about a week. I had never played guitar or anything. And I finally got curious. I opened a case, messed around. I didn't know how to play anything. I was like, maybe I can do this. Let me go get a chord book or two. And I did that. And about day 3, I was hooked. Okay. And that was a long time ago.
So you were actually one of those truly self-trained musicians, because we hear this myth about people that can go into the woodshed and train themselves. I actually, in high school, tried to be in the band, and all along those lines, I think the choir and the band kicked me out because of having not the greatest rhythm in the world. So that whole myth about minorities having rhythm is truly a myth and everything like that. So tell me about this being self-trained, and what time did you get the formal training, or do you still consider yourself more of a self-trained musician?
Well, I'm mostly self-trained. I did, after about year 2, try to take a few lessons from a guy who became my guitar mentor, because I ended up doing sound engineering for him and went on the road and watched him play and learned a bunch by watching him. But other than that, I'm self-trained. I did a lot of put the record on the turntable and put the needle on and try to play this, and then put the needle back where it was and do it again and again and again and over forever and ever, which you don't have to do today because it's all online now. But back then I wore out a few records doing that.
Yeah, definitely wore out a few records doing that and everything like that. Who were some of your early mentors? You mentioned that you had one person that trained you and everything like that, but who were some of your early mentors in terms of music and terms of your own interest in music?
Well, mentor, I would say, would be Roger Hurricane Wilson in the Atlanta area. He's still doing it today. He's a blues guy. He's probably in his mid-70s now, or I think that's about right. But he's still doing it, and I give him credit for getting me, teaching me not only to play some of the rock stuff on guitar that I wanted to play, but also about the music business, about road work, about sound engineering, stuff like that. And then, of course, I ended up doing a lot of that record stuff I was telling you about. My early influences were, Jimi Hendrix, Ritchie Blackmore, Jimmy Page, and then morphed into Mark Knopfler, Carlos Santana, and then morphed into Lee Ritenour and Wes Montgomery, and that takes me into the jazz realm. Larry Carlton's one, that sort of thing. So a lot of that. And Steely Dan, from a musical standpoint, is a big influence on me. If you listen to my music, the most repetitive comment I get is, "That sounds a bit like Steely Dan." I said, "Well, yeah, it probably does." I'm pretty influenced by them from a compositional standpoint.
Well, one of the things I was going to ask you is what advice you would give to other musicians and all along those lines. But I'm also bringing a gentleman that was doing a film about a great musician and everything like that. He's done a film around Brother Youssef and all along those lines. So we've got Raphael joining us and all in that kind of way. So I just wanted your thoughts around Brother Youssef, and if you had the pleasure of ever working with Brother Youssef, because Raphael is doing a film on Brother Youssef and has actually got some works. It's going to be out, I hope, this year and everything like that. So Raphael can give us some more about what's going on with that space and everything. But Will, did you ever have the pleasure of working with Brother Youssef?
I have not.
So you met a true legend. He was a legend here in the Durham area and everything like that. Passed away a few years back. Raphael, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on with this amazing project of yours and everything like that. Because I know you've got a couple of projects, including one about the Quilters. I mentioned that the Quilters are going to be in the building at HI tomorrow, and one of the main quilters is Jerry Ann Pink, who has her own quilt circle in Warrenton, but she's got other things going as well. So we've got this amazing lady that we've also got a film about her as well. And I know you had the pleasure of interviewing both my mom and dad before that because of their involvement with WVSP, the rural radio station up there in Warrenton that started in '76 and lasted till about the mid '80s.
Yeah, hi Mark, hi everyone. The film about Yusef Salim is an incredible film. I was able to connect here when I moved here from New York, and I wasn't too familiar with the Yusef Salim story, and as I started just researching and working with the director, the other director, Kenny Dolsheimer, I realized that it was a gem, of a story that you don't really see covered in film often. And the film has been picture locked. It's in right now being color corrected, and it's going to be released in the earlier part of 2026. And it really covers Yusef's story as in his life in Baltimore. And how he got to Durham through the work and his childhood friend, Imam Kenneth Muhammad, who was key to starting the Black Muslim community here in North Carolina. So it's just him along with Yusef and the whole community they created with jazz and musicians. They literally made Durham into a jazz city, which is, nationwide and worldwide known, the Durham and its influence in jazz. And we really bring in the story of NCCU and how he was influential to, Dr. Ira Wiggins, and Dr. Ira Wiggins was able to pass on that legacy through Brian Horton and other students that they taught. And all that is encapsulated in this movie. And it's really a gem of a story. And I've always been just so grateful and lucky to be part of now, the community and know the people within the community that are playing and just keeping, this legacy alive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Will, what advice would you give on bringing John Prince, who's our last guest and everything? He's a musician as well. But what advice would you give to folks that are thinking about getting into the music business, particularly those that are thinking about getting into jazz and everything like that? You've been in the jazz game for a while and everything like that. So what advice would you give to the young folks that are thinking about getting involved in jazz music?
Well, I've certainly seen a lot of young, 20-somethings. We have a venue here in Wake Forest that caters primarily to jazz, and there's some really talented kids, I call them kids from my perspective, that are coming up. But I would just say, prepare to, if you're trying to get into this for making money, you're gonna be disappointed. I think you got to be in this for the love of the art, and there's not a great deal of venues that allow you to play pure jazz. A lot of them will allow a hybrid of it. Like I get away with that because I'm in the jazz rock realm, so I can do. I scratch my jazz itch as much as they'll let me. But other than that, I have to kind of go back to the stuff that people are familiar with. But my advice would be, just enjoy the music itself, because that's why you get into this, is because jazz moves you in a way that other music styles do not, at least for me. And if that's the case for you, that you're getting into jazz, then play with as many people as you can. Try to play with as many people that are more experienced than you, and learn from them. I'll tell you a quick story about that. When I early on, probably in the late '80s, I used to live in Atlanta, and I got the opportunity to tour with St. Clair Pinckney in the Southeast. He's the baritone sax player for James Brown's original band, and it was a great experience. And I love the improvisational stuff that St. Clair did on the sax. But he had a keyboard player. I'll never forget him. His name was Wallace Hartfield, and I've never found him. I always mention him on these kind of things in case for some reason he's listening. But Wallace Hartfield opened the door for me to learn jazz. I mentioned earlier that my influences early on were Jimmy Page, Richie Blackmore, Jimi Hendrix, that sort of thing. But when Wallace Hartfield taught me voicings on chords and how the intervals work and stuff like that while we were touring, it didn't take me long to just realize that he had just opened a giant door for me. And that is something you only really get to exercise a lot in jazz. You don't get to do that in rock. Rock doesn't lend itself well to that. There's some fringe bands like, Steely Dan is in a spot where they use jazz chords and intervals and walk the melody in through the chords and things like that you can do with a little bit more of a freeform platform like jazz. But, you just gotta, it opened the door for me, and I'd be looking for somebody like that if I were a young jazz guy. Like, let me hook up with somebody who's been through the ropes, not only from the music standpoint, but the music business part of it too, where you're playing in clubs and the mechanics of that, and playing with other musicians and different styles of instruments, all that. I would just say, do as much of it as you can, learn as much as you can, and let the experience take you where it's going to take you. If you think you know where the end is, you're wrong. You got to keep your mind open and keep your eyes open and look for opportunities. And they say luck is the intersection of preparedness and opportunity. Well, you got to be prepared for luck to happen to you, and that's really what happened for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to bring in John into the conversation as well, but this is for both you, Will, John, and definitely even Wayne can answer it, and definitely Raphael. But one of the reasons the network Pod TV was created is they were frustrated at things that weren't being taught in the school system, and one of those things was this notion of fiscal literacy and all along those lines. And we know that a lot of times people in the entertainment world, they are aware that it is called show business for a reason, but a lot of people know the show part of it, but not necessarily the business aspect of it and everything like that. So I was just wondering, for everybody here, at what point, and I'll start with you, John, did you realize that you had to have a business acumen to go with what you were doing entertainment wise, because you are a performer as well?
Yeah, well, the business part, like Will said, making money can't be the goal or the objective here, because that's a rarity. So it was a matter of the business acumen is just taking the opportunities where they arrive. So for me, that meant actually going into clubs and restaurants and bars and giving them business cards, having a press kit prepared, and then doing all that I could, and then it's out of my hands at that point. So letting the music managers then make their decisions and contact. I would have some follow-up emails or follow-up phone calls, follow-up visits, but it's a matter of just, again, kind of the luck. Do what you can to get it out there, and then patience.
Patience is very important and everything like that. Hey, Wayne, that's something I hear from a lot of business coaches, is that a lot of people don't have they will get the business card, they'll collect business cards. I've got a whole stack of them right by me right here and everything like that, but they won't do the follow-up of doing the follow-up calls and everything like that. So is that a issue that exists within both the entertainment and the business world, where there's a lot of lack of follow-up in terms of you might present the card, but then you might not do like John is doing and actually follow up with a call and getting back in touch with the people.
I think part of the problem is people confusing work and magic. That somehow giving them this piece of cardboard was going to make something happen. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't happen even the first time. Often it's the second time. And if you seem too needy or too salesy, you're not even going to get the third call. So yeah, that's in business. That's in coaching. John, where are you from? I don't know where you hail from.
I'm located here in Durham.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm the misplaced Canuck here. I'm coming in from Canada.
Yes,
So
you're the outlier today.
yes, I'm the outlier.
Well, I know Raphael is somewhat of an outlier because he moved here from New York, even though he's made this area home and everything along those lines. But he moved from New York and everything like that. You mentioned earlier noticing the jazz scene, and I know that you and your other half are business partners in this film endeavor and everything like that. So what advice would you give to filmmakers that are thinking about going into filmmaking? I know there's a number of film festivals that are out there, and some people think that they're just going to submit to a film festival. I'm actually judged a couple of those film festivals, and that's automatically going to make them a hit star. But I think it's kind of like jazz music. It is a diligent thing where you got to stay diligent and all along those lines. But I just wondering, at what point did you team up with this business partner of yours, who I think is also your other half, and all along those lines, and how did that work-life balance work as well?
Well, I took not the traditional route to filmmaker. I went to school. I'm a biologist and a chemist. I went to Case Western Reserve out in Cleveland, trying to be pre-medicine. I realized that wasn't for me, and I went to law school, and I realized that wasn't for me. So I started a nonprofit in the Bronx, in New York City, where we would work with street vendors, immigrant street vendors, a lot of them without papers, and we developed an organization to combat, anti-immigrant policies and anti-immigrant sentiments that was in the local government and nationwide as well. We were confronting police and their tactics of arresting and really terrorizing a lot of communities there. So our work was around that, and trying to build relationships with politicians so that we could pass legislation that help people. Within that, I had a food cart in New York City, a tax business, and really all these ventures took me in many places. Working for the nonprofit, I was in Switzerland a lot, traveled all around the world, Egypt, and really was involved in people's movements, and connected through that to other parts of the world. And that really informed my passion for filmmaking. And I realized I had a knack for filmmaking once we got a grant, and this was in 2007, 2008. A grant from the Manhattan Neighborhood Network in New York, and they taught us how to edit. They taught us how to film, and it was and they gave us the equipment. And it was supposed to be for the members of me as an organizer. Really, really, I had to learn it to teach it, and I loved it. And I tinkered around with it a little bit, and then in 2017, I decided to go to school and get a master's in film at the City College of New York, where I later would teach. And it was, I realized how amazing that experience was. Everything that I did in my life gave me the ability to inform myself to be able to tell the story correctly. The story that often get overlooked, often are not lifted. And I'm not gonna lie, like everything you do in the beginning, it's very hard economically, but you if you really love it, you figure out a way. Whether it's teaching, whether it's grants. I was fortunate to get a lot of, or quite a few, not a lot of fellowships, and really start building the company with my partner, and to the point where we actually are not we don't have a online footprint. It's by word of mouth that people hire us. We've been fortunate to get quite a few films. Right now, we're working on 3 feature-length films, and we have 3 short films that we're working on. And some of them are our own personal endeavors, but others are paid. We've been contracted to do, and it's been going really well for us, fortunately. And we want to make sure that part of our work is to teach people that want to get into filmmaking, is to teach them that business side of the equation, of being a filmmaker. And that's really important. How do you do budgeting? How do you do project, short-term and long-term income, and really put that into back into the business and really grow from that sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, both Will and John, one of the things that I know musicians get frustrated by and everything like that, but there's 2 things that I'm curious to hear y'all's response to this. But I know that a lot of musicians, because I've got friends that are in everything from neo soul to funk music to jazz to a number of other forms, including one of my favorite forms, blues music and everything along those lines, that a lot of times they have to work side gigs, or what they call the whole gig economy, whether that's driving DoorDash or whether that's working at Uber or doing a number of other things as well. So how do you get past that, or are you past that, or are you even having to find that yourself working in other gigs as well? So I know a number of musicians that are very much involved in that gig economy because they don't have any choice, because they've got to make money in order to survive.
Well, John's wearing a tie, so I think I already know his answer. So you go first, John.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, music is my side gig. Unfortunately, I'm a full-time professor and administrator at NCCU. Unfortunately, music is my side gig. Although I've been fortunate, I think, to do as much of it, especially the last 10 years or so, as I have been able to. So, I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to be able to make a career out of it. So I've been lucky that it's more than a hobby.
Yeah, that sounds similar to me. I'm a degreed engineer. I went to Georgia Tech, Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech and all that. And I decided I need something to support my habit. My habit is music. And so I'm like, I need a real career. Otherwise I have to sleep outdoors. And so I did that. But at the same time, like I mentioned, I did the tour with St. Clair between semesters. I did. But so then when I moved up to North Carolina, I moved because of a job change. I work for Fortune 500 electrical companies, a lot of names you might know if you're in those circles. But I've always been doing the music thing, and then when I got here to Raleigh, I moved to Raleigh almost 30 years ago now, and for the last 21 years I've run the Will McBride Group, and I've done it in a way that it allowed me to do what I wanted to do. My goal is a little different than most musicians. They want to go and get a gig and get paid and all that sort of thing. My goal was more to do more memorable shows, and COVID really taught me that I needed to go ahead and do that. And so I stopped doing so many gigs and started doing fewer and further between. I really got a taste for it. I mean, everybody knows where DPAC is. Everybody from Durham. Well, I got a chance to play at DPAC one time, and that convinced me that's the stuff I want to do. I don't want to play in a bar that I'll forget in a week. So I started doing opening act shows and stuff like that, and I taught myself how to get those shows. And it's like one of you said earlier, I think it was Wayne that said, don't confuse work for magic. Well, everybody asked me, well, who do you know and where's the magic and how did you do that? Well, it was hard work to do that. To get opening act shows with major touring acts, that's a lot of legwork, and you get it's a low hit rate, but I've learned how to at least tolerate that low hit rate. And so now as I've gotten older, I want to do shows that I'm going to be able to look back on and go, wow, that was really cool. We got to do this, or we got to play here or whatever, play with this group or that group. And so that's been my goal. But all the while, still an engineer. I'm still working as an electrical engineer for a very large company right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, John, I know that Central has a very esteemed music department, but if I remember correctly, you're not actually working in the music department. You work in another part of Central as well. And
Right.
everything.
I'm an English professor, so I'm a department chair in
There you go.
language and literature. But I've got a lot of colleagues over there in the music department.
Yeah, I thought that you
Isn't
were
it funny? Isn't it funny how people always ask, well, how did engineering and music get together? I was like, well, how does any side, other profession like an English teacher, how does that parlay into it? I don't know. It's an appreciation for the art. And
Yeah,
how do you know who's going to appreciate art? I mean, I know some people don't get it, but it's not just a particular type of person that appreciates the art. It takes all kinds.
exactly.
Yeah, it definitely does. So, John, when we heard from Will how he got involved, and he was a self-taught musician and everything like that. When did you discover your love of music, and what brought you into the music realm? And also, they say that everybody has a book in them. I've actually been part of a compilation book, and am now considered a best-selling author because of Brian Shulman, who is a LinkedIn influencer, and he had me write a chapter. So my chapter was actually about the Soul family, because I'm actually one of those people that believe that while I'm very close to my family and very close to my natural family, that there's also your soul family, which is people that you naturally align with, and which is like you, Will, and you, John, and definitely even you, Raphael, and then now Wayne joined that soul family as well. But I just wondered what got you into music and your thoughts around this notion of not just your immediate family, but your soul family as well.
Yeah, so I was always into music as a child, and I asked to pick up the trumpet. And I took trumpet lessons and played in the band. And then at some point during that, the guitar just beckoned me. So when I was about 13 years old, I saved up and bought a guitar, and there's no looking back at that point. I still play the trumpet, but it was that point I kind of set the trumpet aside a little bit and picked up the guitar. And I've been playing since I was 12, 13 years old. Um, but yeah, that soul family too. I mean, Brett Chambers. So
Yes.
Brett's open mic. So a quick little side story with him. So when I came to NCCU in Durham, North Carolina in 2008, Brett and I were in the same department, which was in English and mass communication. And our offices were across the hall from each other. We could see each other. We chatted, we talked. I didn't know for 3 years that he was a musician and had an open mic until he invited us out one time. So I thought, okay, I'll bring my guitar out and I'll play a little bit. And it was when it was still at Papa Mojo's. So I came out, brought my guitar, and from the first moment that I walked in, I knew they had Delaney playing. I think maybe I forget who was on drums. Probably Cedric at that point on drums, and I think Al Key was on bass. And I knew I was going to have to up my game. So, but then within a couple of years, as the open mic moved around, Brett and I formed a band, Checkerboard Suede, and
Right.
mainly blues rock. And we went through, I don't know, a dozen different bass players for various reasons throughout the years. But the soul family, so to bring that back in, my soul family is Brett Chambers and Jick Winslow. Jick is the one who we brought on last to be a bass player in Checkerboard Suede, and he kind of made it feel complete.
Yeah, you gotta have that feeling complete nature and everything like that. How do y'all deal? This is for you, Will, and you, John, because I've heard some musicians that are feeling that there is a dual competition going on sometimes with the bands. That there are some people that want to have the band as a career and want to make it a full-time career, and there are others that are feeling like they only are in it because of a side gig or hobby kind of attitude. And then sometimes if they are the leader has one attitude or the other, it seems to be a conflict and everything like that. So how did y'all deal with that? Because I know that sometimes people are like, well, I want only quote unquote serious musicians. I don't want any hobbyists or things along those lines. And other folks are like, I just want good musicians.
I'll let Will start because I know he's got to jump off here and get ready.
Yeah, I got to jump off a little bit. As a band leader, I've been a band leader for the last 21 years. And for me, that's one of the things I try to assess is your head in the same place as mine? You know, I know what I want to achieve and how I'm doing it. And, if I get somebody in there that's a hobbyist that doesn't practice enough or not really let's assume everybody I'm talking about is proficient on their instrument, but if they don't practice enough to learn the parts, then that's not really what I need. And then on the other end, if it's somebody who's trying to make a living and they're desperate to work, and if I don't get a gig every, because I booked the band and everything, if I don't get a gig every week, then they're not going to be happy. Well, that's also not the right person. So I kind of just cover that right away and say, here's what I think the core, the most important part is to make sure the goal of the band is well known. This is what we're trying to achieve. If you're trying to work, every weekend, 52 weekends a year, well, then you need players that want to do that, but they need to know that. Otherwise, you're going to get somebody in there that doesn't want to work that much, and you're going to invest time in them, and then they're going to go, nah, I don't really want to do this. And then you take a setback. And the other situation, like the way I am, is true, where I don't want to work that often. I want to work once or twice a month, but if I get a really, compelling show somewhere at a big theater with, 1,500 or 2,000 people in it, well, then I will take that show. But I have to have people that are interested in doing that and can prepare properly and do their homework. And, so it just takes you have to sift through to find the people that match your goals. I think that's the short answer.
That makes sense. Before I get to John and his answer, and I know you've got to bounce that, so I'm going to ask you this other question as well, because there was two things I wanted to get to you before you get out of here. How do you deal, because one of the things I talk about on this show regularly is the work-life balance. So how do you make that work-life balance work for you, Will, and all along those lines? Because I know that it can be a conflict for business owners as well as for musicians and entertainers that's trying to make that work-life balance work. And the other thing that we talk about quite often on this show is the imposter syndrome. So at what point did you get over that imposter syndrome? Because I know even in my own life, I have not gone for jobs, not gone for relationships, because I've talked myself out of them and everything like that. So how did you get past that imposter syndrome?
Well, it's basically, it's always a balance. And, my wife tells me, she says she doesn't want to talk to me when I'm in band mode. Well, she knows what band mode is. She's defined it. And I get in that mode. And so, it's just like she just gets out of the way, and she knows to do that. She's been with me for a long, long time and knows how this works. But yeah, I have to make sure that, it helps that I don't want to play as many gigs anymore. So I can do that work-life balance. And you have to balance life with everything you're doing. With your day job, you have to do the same thing. You have to, I travel a bit, so I have to balance that as well. I'm gone for, 3 or 4 days during the week, and I come home and I have a gig on the weekend. Well, I got to make up that time with my wife somehow, and, that sort of thing. So there's no set formula. You just have to be attentive to it. You have to be aware of it and service all the different things that are pulling at you, in such a way that I don't feel neglected. I mean, you obviously have to service your employer, or you're going to be on the street. But you also have to service you have to scratch your itch that you want to play music. That's irrepressible. And then you have to, also, service your family and do that. So you just kind of have to monitor it. It's kind of like a short order grill person, running the grill. You have to check, make sure the meat's not burning, the fries are not overcooked, and you have to go back. You just have to continue to cycle through it. It's kind of like that.
It makes sense. How do you deal with the imposter syndrome? Because I know sometimes, even in your own life, like you said, you're successfully married and everything like that. But how did you get past that note of having self-confidence, which is really what the imposter syndrome is about, is having a lack of self-confidence? So how did you get past that?
Well, I mean, there are times when I'm not past it. There are. But, you kind of have to prepare it. You have to prepare. You have to, I do a lot of private practice myself. I do that. And, that's how I help. The more prepared you are, the more confident you get. If you go in, do a big show and you haven't worked on stuff, you're going to fall flat. Something's going to not go well. So to me, preparedness is what does it.
Now that makes sense. Before you get ready to get out of here, and I know you got to get out before others get out and everything along those lines and everything like that. Tell folks how you can be reached and how you can be contacted, and if folks are interested in hearing more of your music, and I'm actually going to play one of your cuts that I've got here and everything along those lines so they can hear your latest work and everything like that. But definitely tell folks how they can reach you and how they can be in touch with you.
Well, the center of the universe for the Will McBride Group is willmcbridegroup.com. It's got everything there. It's got all the videos. I've got, as I sent you, my latest video that just came out New Year's Eve. My 13th official music video is there, but all of them are there on the homepage, and it's got live videos, and it's got our band bio, and it's got contact information, and it's got everything pretty much. You can reach us there. There's an email methodology. You can also reach me at willmcbridegroup@gmail.com. That's an email for that. That's the best way to reach. And you know, we're on all the streaming services. All my music. I got four full albums and an EP and then some singles. They're all out there on all the streaming services. So, you know, if you want to find it, you can find it.
Well, the network is a global network because Nick Falveda and Kim Calhoun founded this as a global network. So I know they have listeners in places like Bangladesh and Australia and other places as well. So what advice would you give, because it's something I do, and I'll get to the other gentlemen as well, that no matter who the guests are, to what words of encouragement would you give, or words of positivity would you give? Because that's something I end every show with every guest. And since you're the first one to leave, I'll have you answer that. But what would your word of positivity be for the world in these difficult times?
Wow. All I know, you can only control what you can control. You know, try to be kind, try to lift someone up. I try to do it through music, but I also try to do it through interpersonal relationships, and just be honest, and, you know, all the things that are common sense. Be honest, be kind, be, you know, giving if you can. You know, I know everybody can't, you know, everybody has to give and take, but, you know, help someone if you can. That's really what I look at.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I appreciate you being on and everything along those lines. I'm going to see if I can pull up this one video, and we'll get a chance to hear a little bit of your music, if it works and everything like that. So this is one of them times we're going to see if it works. So let's check this out if everything works accordingly.
Great.
Especially at home, smiling way, not much to say. We all have ours and I'm minding my own business, that's just my way. But that one neighbor, you know the one I mean, quick to talk about everyone else, juicy details in between. I've had enough, I can't take it anymore. Your journey, head straight for the door. Don't stop believing. Don't say goodbye. Just believing. Don't slow down, don't turn around. Don't stop believing, yeah. Such thing as a normal family, in that way we're all the same. If you don't know who the weird one is, that person probably has your name. Now I know that one, the fam acknowledges I'm not wrong. When we get together at our place, make sure that one doesn't stay too long. I've had enough, I can't take it anymore.
Very cool. I have a question for Raphael.
Yes.
You talked about this is an online dinner party. So where's the best street food? What is the best street food?
Oh, well, in New York City or
Sure.
in New York City? Oh, there's too many. There's so many.
Name three.
Let me see. I like there's very good tacos all along Roosevelt Avenue in Queens, New York. That's where you can get amazing tacos. Some of the best right there. And 83rd and Roosevelt. There's I'm forgetting the name of the little truck. There's the Arepa Lady, which is Colombian arepas, and also a gentleman Alfonso that does also arepas there on Roosevelt, and some of the best arepas I've ever tasted, and it's incredible because Queens, I think that there's approximately 100 and I believe it was 140 something. I'm not exactly sure. Languages spoken in their school system, so that tells you the diversity and just exciting, flavors that you get all through that. So that's one thing I definitely love about New York City. Now in Raleigh, I actually just tried Mr. G's tacos, and it kind of knocked me out of my shoes how good it was. So that's the one I would actually recommend here. Yeah.
Thank you.
In Raleigh.
Sounds good. Hey, John, any places that you've got that you're going to and everything like that are your go-tos in terms of food and all along those lines? Because actually, I just became for the there was a couple of gap years, but I've joined Yelp Elite again, so I have been going to some of these different restaurants, and some of them are very good, some of them are average, and everything like that. But what are your go-to places for folks to go to if you're taking them out to eat?
Well, there's a new place we just went to, Nara on Ramseur. That's only been there for a few months, but it was great, excellent food. And they've got vegan options as well. And then down the street from that is Mescalito, which has just been there a couple of years. As far as food trucks, I can't remember the name, but there's one on the corner of Carver and what is that street? I forget what the street is there, but there's a food truck at an intersection of Carver that has some great tacos.
Oh, it sounds like it and everything, so we'll have to check that one out. I think I know the one you're talking about and all on those lines. John, really quickly, how do you deal with that work-life balance? I know how Will deals with it and everything like that, and also deal with that whole notion of the imposter syndrome. So both of those, how do you deal with those?
One is to manage expectations. So with me and the band that I'm in part-time, one, we had discussions many times about, are we going to add a fourth or even a fifth member to the band? And the resounding answer was always, when we really thought it through, no, we don't have the time. We've already got, so we had Tuesday nights were our nights. Almost every Tuesday night, that was our practice night. So we'd spend 3 hours rehearsing, and then we'd have, at our most busy, we'd have maybe two gigs a month, maybe 5 over a 2-month period. So every couple of weeks. So we had a schedule, and we knew our limitations, what we were going to be able to accomplish, and we weren't frustrated that we weren't playing, 2 or 3 nights every weekend. We weren't frustrated that we couldn't find more practice time. We knew what our limitations were going in, and that's part dovetailing with what Will says. You all have to be on the same page. All the members of the band have to have the same goals. And so we made sure that we checked back in with each other every few months to make sure those goals were still what we wanted. And we did try out a fourth member here and there, and it just never worked out. So, so managing those expectations.
Yeah, expectations is important and everything like that. Raphael, how important is the expectations to you and everything along those lines? Because it's got to be an added complication, but not complication to also have your partner be your business partner as well. So how does that work out? Also, you got that whole thing where you're probably having conversations at a time when y'all supposed to be having other things going on.
Well, I second what John just said about people having the same alignment, and things work well when that's in place. I met my partner Leilani Clark in Mexico City. We were both doing immigrant rights work, and we met there because the United Nations was having conversations about the future of migration around the world, and they weren't including civil society. So we were there to pressure the UN to open its doors to civil society and hear what was needed. And we were, she has been doing a lot of work around migration issues at the border, which is very different than at that time, the work that we were doing in New York City. The border was always plagued with a lot of militarization, a lot of violence coming from Border Patrol. And they always warned, that this style of enforcement was going to go spread throughout the U.S., and we're seeing that now. So we in New York were receiving the migrants that had come through the border, and we were helping them get on their feet, get a street vendor's license. We were the first city to allow street vendors to apply for a street vendor's license despite their immigration status. As long as they were paying taxes and all that was lined up, they were able to get a street vendor's license. And that came from a lot of work from communities. A good friend of mine, Flor Bermudez with Esperanza del Barrio. I was working then at that point. We were able to do that. And so this alignment has been there from early on. We were friends for so many years before, actually started dating. So now as our company Elevate Media Films was created, we are able to really enjoy the process, pick the films and the stories that we want, and also do commercial work. We worked for Laura Mercier doing makeup commercials, to pay the bills. But it actually is fun. It makes you refine your skills, because you have to make sure the lighting is exactly right. The camera's panning this way, whereas the product's going that way, and it's hard as you're doing it. But when you look back, it was enjoyable. It was a fun experience. But our alignment in our worldviews of just being able to explore other cultures, have this understanding of how interconnected we all are, and really putting that at the front of our company has it's a pleasure, working together with her and other people we bring into the group, so that we can't do everything. We don't have all the skills, so wherever we are missing the skills, then that's part. We bring someone that's their skills, so it works out really well.
That makes sense. Everything. Hey, John, just really quickly, and all along those lines, I've kind of alluded to it earlier and everything, but there's this notion that everybody has a great book in them or a great film in them. I'm sure that many of your students think that they have the next great novel in them and everything along those lines. So what is your advice to those folks that are thinking that they have a story, and there are some people that I think that are afraid to tell their stories? Because I've even got some friends that have been in bad situations and know that they want to tell their stories, but they're afraid to tell their stories, are timid in telling their stories, whether it's in book form or in film form and everything like that. So what advice would you give to folks that are thinking they have a story to tell?
Persist. The first step in that is to telling the story, regardless of who you end up telling it to. So if that's writing it down, telling it to someone who's safe and a good listener, But yeah, persisting through that process to make sure that that story is told in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. What about you, Raphael? Because I know that a lot of people are uh, timid about telling their stories because they're afraid of the repercussions of the story, because sometimes the stories don't always have good guys in them. Sometimes the stories have bad guys in them, and all along those lines. So definitely there are some people that I know, even in my own circle of friends, that have stories that they want to tell, but they are resisting telling those stories because they're afraid of the damage that might be done.
Yeah, I think of storytelling. It's one of the most ancient ways of humans have passed on stories and been able to survive. Through the knowledge that's passed through storytelling. So it's something that we see it in the music. With griots. Coming that culture. From Africa, for example, with the griots coming here. Unfortunately, many were brought here as under slavery, but they continued that tradition, and it's really powerful. One of the most powerful ways humans can express art, express their stories, and that's not just limited to career people, that have studied films, and you can do these as you feel you can, and maybe it won't be for Netflix or HBO or anything like that, but it can, people within your community will hear it, and be inspired. As many as a filmmaker, I've seen films that never made it big, but they've really informed the what path I want to take, informed my way of thinking. And we can look at Yusuf's story. Yusuf Salim was not a musician that was worldwide known. He didn't become, a superstar in that sense, but he was a superstar in the local community. He was a superstar as a teacher, and the lives that he touched, and those people became superstars. Gary Bartz, Grammy Award winner. He was taught by Yusuf how to play. Nina Freelon, Cornelius. I mean, it just is, the list goes on. So one quote from Gary Bartz that always stuck with me is that the musicians that the unsung heroes, are you see them and see their art through the people that you do hear in their art form. Those unsung heroes are always there, that have informed these very talented people that make it into the limelight. So remembering those and seeking those. So I take a lot of comfort knowing that my stories, our stories, might not be picked up, but the right people will see it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mentioned that in addition to Brother Yusuf, you got the film about Jerry Ann King, who was a family friend and everything like that. What is some of the things that you have learned that surprised you about the quilt world and everything like that? 'Cause like I said, I'll see them in about 3 days, and there are some tremendously talented ladies that are ranging in age, and some as old as in their 70s and 80s, on down to like some youngsters that are doing quilts. But what are some of the things that you were fascinated by as you did this research on Jerry Ann King in that particular film?
Yeah, the film is a working title. It's called Freedom Station, and it's about the story and life of Jerry Ann King Johnson. And as we are, and it's currently in the early stages of production. I would say even research, and production, because we have started filming. And I know we filmed your father and your mother, and this is a great interview, so much information. But Jerry Ann came to Warrenton, which is a city north of or west, east of Durham, northeast, and she came to work at the first rural community ran black radio station in the country, which was started by Jim and Valeria Lee,
Right.
Mark, your parents, and it's such a powerful story of just persistence and innovation and science and music, and it's just one of her. So as we're looking at Jerry Ann's life, movie or storytelling wise, we focused in some of the most important parts of her life, and the time that she was at WVSP, the radio station. It was one of the moments where so much was going on, so much beautiful, exciting things were happening that we hyper focus on that point so that we can expand on it. And but the film starts or ends, we don't know, with the quilting. And the quilting has been a tradition in her family. You know, it has been a tradition in Black culture, and it's something that I just find it's a technology, you know, of storytelling that you might see it as simple, you know, or but it's very complicated. It's something that you can touch, something that you can, you know, feel, that has a purpose, keeps you warm. You know, people have used it. You know, it passes through families, and the quilters group that she's running, and it's just incredible evolution of the quilting art that they've undertaken, where the current stories, it's not just now, well, it's not that it's just, but they've evolved from patterns, you know, in these quilts to telling a clear, encompassing story with one quilt, you know, almost like you're looking at it's like you're looking at a piece of painting, you know. And you know, for me, it moves. It's almost like it encompasses filmmaking, encompasses art, painting, quilting, weaving. It's just absolutely beautiful and stunning.
Yeah, no doubt about that. One of the things that I was watching a documentary recently about Chicano muralists and everything, and all along those lines, and they were talking about how a lot of times quilts and even definitely the murals were used as a method of talking about and advocating for social justice and everything like that. So this is for everybody, but I'm just wondering, how important do the three of you gentlemen feel it is to use art as a form of advocacy and everything like that? Because I know some of the quilts would tell stories, and I know that there have been musicians that have told stories with their art as well. And I'm sure you've seen some stuff in Wayne in Canada as well. But I'm just wondering, how important do you think it is for artists to be using their art form as a form of advocacy?
It's a necessity, I think. Got to have a purpose for that art, and in most timelines, there is some social injustice that needs to be addressed. I've got a song that I wrote in 2017. It's on my first album. You know, 2017 is, you know, when we had the first Trump administration. But the song itself is called "It's All Right," and it's a very sardonic, ironic song about, hey, as long as everything's going well with me, then I don't care about anybody else. And I've had a lot of people who are like, they don't get it. You know, they'll listen to the song and they'll say, yeah, this is all about personal freedom and, you know, individuality. Like, no, it's arguing against that we have a responsibility. We have a duty to speak up, especially when we're not the ones being affected. When everything's going fine with us, that's when we really need to take that power and help out those who are being oppressed.
And John, now you have an opportunity to re-release it.
Oh, it's still out there, so yeah.
Might have to get re-released, like Wayne is saying, and everything like that. Because that kind of reminds me, and I know that Raphael is aware of this as well, but there's that famous poet, I think it was out during the time of Nazi Germany and everything like that, which is that they came for this group, they came for that group, and then with the end of the poem, they were coming for the person that was writing the poem. I forgot the whole nature of the point, but it's basically this notion of they were coming for me and I didn't care. They were coming for this other group and I didn't care. And by the time they came for me, there was nobody to care for me.
Exactly.
But that's something.
Yeah, I know, and I'd love to hear, Wayne, what's your point on social justice and art?
Well, interestingly enough, I didn't know what to expect today, and I ended up being with mostly musicians. But there's no question that art tells the story in a different way that connects a different part of the brain. So it goes beyond logical to where you feel it. And so that becomes a very, very important thing. And that's why my book, even though it has some teaching in it, is fictional. So yeah, art is important.
Yeah, tell us about your book and everything. You mentioned the coaching and the book, but tell us about the book as well.
Okay, well, it's called Freshly Brewed Coaching, and it was based on trying to get coaching tools to Main Street. So we invented a coffee shop. We actually didn't do coaching there. We invented it in our mind, but we invented people who were getting coaching that were electricians and shopkeepers and baristas and bank managers, not just CEOs. So, and then we told the story as if they were in a coffee shop, and that's why it's called Freshly Brewed Coaching. And I'd love you to go to freshlybrewedcoaching.com and just play around.
Yeah, we definitely should do that and everything. What's the number one thing that you think that is wrongly done in coaching, whether it's business coaching or even other kinds of coaching that are out there? Because I know there are music coaches and there are film coaches and everything like that. But as a coach yourself, what is the number one error that you see coaches doing?
I see people who think it has to be like you're a drill sergeant, where I'm paying $200 a month to be yelled at. That's just stupid. So coaching should be uplifting. It's not just to be scolded. That's what your vice principal was for in grade 8.
Definitely, that's what you. And by the way, Wayne, I was going to tease you because you actually, speaking of coaching, you have a parallel person that has the same name as you that actually has a famous son and everything along those lines. Because when I was looking up Wayne Pratt and everything, Kevin Durant's father has the exact same name and everything like that. So the famous basketball player shares your name. Well,
and it does get confusing. It truly does. But hey, if it gets me bookings, I'm okay.
It'll get you the bookings, you're okay, and everything like that. So I'm sure people are sometimes calling you saying, "Are you Wayne Pratt, Kevin Durant's father?" And you're going like, "No, that's not me, but I can still talk to you about coaching and things along those lines."
There was also a Wayne Pratt who's now deceased, who was a famous auctioneer, who ended up buying a document that had some weird provenance. And so, no, I'm not that Wayne Pratt.
You're not that Wayne Pratt and everything like that. John, you know, you've got a common name. Mark's a common name as well. Are there any times that you will have a mistaken identity where people are thinking that you are another John Prince and everything along those lines? So do you ever have a confusion with other John Princes out there?
Well, there is a little bit of a confusion. There's surprisingly a lot of John Princes on streaming services. You have to actually search for John Prince Imagination to kind of get me, because that's the title of my first solo album. Otherwise, there's a couple death metal John Princes. There's a couple folk artists. There's a hip hop artist, John Prince. In fact, if you look, one of the streaming services, I forget which one, you can get to my artist page and it has a different John Prince's album as one of mine. It has mine up there, but it also has one of his listed as one of mine. So.
Yeah, because I think there's an African musician that is also named John Prince as well and everything like that. Who's in African folk music and everything along those lines. So.
And when I was growing up, my best friend who was a bass player in the band that I was in high school, he always used to joke, of course, back when they had record stores, he said, yeah, when you get famous, your name will be between Prince and John Prine.
Yes.
Alphabetically. And in fact, when you search John Prince, the first thing that actually comes up on the streaming services is John Prine. Did you mean John Prine?
Yeah, did you mean John Prine? No, we're looking for John Prince, the one from North Carolina and everything like that. Raphael, I don't think you have that problem because it's not a common last name. It may be a common last name in parts of New York and parts of Mexico and other places, but it's not a common last name around North Carolina. So I don't think that you have many other Rafael Samanezes that are here in the area.
Yeah, not even in Latin America. It's hard to find the Samanezes. So yeah, I don't have that problem much.
Don't have that
problem.
problem.
People pronouncing it, but it's fine. I love to see people pronounce it different ways, so it's all good to me.
It's all good the way that people pronounce it and everything. How does the family name come up into your family and everything like that? Because like I said, there are certain names that are very common out there, whether it's Chambers, which we've talked about before, my friend Brett Chambers, and all along those lines, who's also John's friend, or whether it's another friend, Pascal, or the Keys of the world and everything like that. So there are some common names. And of course, Lee is a very common name and everything like that. So how did your family name come about?
Well, Samanez is Spanish, name that comes from my family was part of my family was migrants from Spain towards South America, and they married Peruvian people, and it's the story of the colonization, of Latin America in that sense. My family is both Quechua, Peruvian, and we have a lot of migration from Spain, Italy, part of from my mother's side, they come from Northern Africa, Morocco, where they were coming to Peru at a time where, there's been succession of different migrants into Peru in different times. We have a very, very large Japanese, Chinese sector of the community that has influenced the culture deeply. There's very, very strong African influence in the Peruvian diaspora, and where the Peruvian identity, and is very strong roots in African culture. Even our national dish, anticuchos, which is heart of the cow. It was from people that were enslaved being given these pieces to eat, that the colonizers, the Spanish, didn't eat, and they were able to using local ingredients, but also in their knowledge of food, able to make these incredible culinary advances that now Peru claimed as a national identity dish, and I always think it's important to talk about where these come from, as like our names, and really also confront, that duality of having the experience of many families. They're tied to the colonial history as well as the native history, and that's a evolving, always difficult conversation, but one that needs to be had many times.
Yeah, definitely got to be had and everything along those lines. Get ready to wrap up shortly, and all along those lines, probably about another 10, 15 minutes and everything. But before we got out of here, and I'm going to probably stitch your clips into the show afterwards, Rafael, and everything like that. But I did have one of the songs from John that I wanted to play and everything like that. So we're going to hear a little bit of John's earlier work from Imagination. So let's check this out.
Come fly with me to a world you can see with the eyes of imagination. Go where you dare and I'll follow you there to the land of your own creation. For a moment in time, leave your troubles behind and indulge in your fascination. Show me the way and we'll both fly away on the wings of inspiration. Look up on the horizon. Shall we join in the chorus, singing in sweet harmony? Come, let us dance with the shadows, forgetting all concept of time. See with your mind, not your eyes, what will you find? Come fly with me to a world you can see with the eyes of imagination. Go where you dare and I'll follow you there to the land of your own creation. For a moment in time, leave your troubles behind and indulge in your fascination. Show me the way and we'll both fly away on the wings of inspiration. Dream of a world without hunger. Dream of a world without greed. World without apprehension of living and dying in need. Imagine a world of compassion for veterans and immigrants too. See with your mind, not your eyes, it'll make it come true. Come fly with me to a world you can see with the eyes of imagination. Go where you dare and I'll follow you there to the land of your own creation. For a moment in time, leave your troubles behind and indulge in your fascination. Show me the way and we'll both fly away on the wings of inspiration.
John, that was awesome.
Thank you. I just realized I'm wearing the same tie.
At the same time from that and everything like that. But just really quickly, one of the things that I've talked about on this show on several episodes is this notion of whether we are encouraging our kids' creativity enough and all along those lines. So I'd love to hear, because that's kind of what that song was alluding to and everything. Do you think that we are doing a good enough job of encouraging creativity? Because one of the things I'll just say, and it's a kind of a side that I've told on this show before, is that there's a gentleman out of Los Angeles. His name is IPC, stands for I Paint Creatures, and you can find him on Instagram and other sources. But he created a group called the Funky Eye Puppets, which was a audio troupe, an audio theater troupe during the pandemic, and I was part of that troupe. And he would oftentimes tell us to get out of our heads and to actually go back to that childhood wonder that oftentimes we are taught to not do enough of and everything once we go into corporate America and everything like that. So I just wondering, do you feel that we sometimes suppress our imagination and suppress that childhood wonder?
I think there's
Absolutely, completely.
there's a hypocrisy to it, because on the one hand, oh yeah, we want people to be creative. We want people, we sometimes put them up on pedestals and make gods out of them. But on the other hand, we make it almost impossible for anyone with that creative bent to make a living at it. The 1/10 of 1% is able to make some kind of living as a quote unquote rock star through that creativity. But so we pay lip service to it as a society, but we don't really follow through, I don't think. But yeah, that is definitely one of the messages of that song, is about tapping into that sense of imagination, of wonder, returning to childhood. And one quick thing about that song, I wrote that back in 1990. And I always knew if I had an album, that would be the title track. So it took me 30 years or so to get that out. But I added the last verse in 2019. You heard that part of that last verse is dream of a world of compassion for veterans and immigrants too. So I wrote that at that time, again, during the first Trump administration, when people were saying, well, we shouldn't be allowing immigrants in. What about feeding the homeless veterans first? And you don't have to do, it's not an either or question. We can have compassion for all of those people. So I added it, and I always felt like that song needed a third verse. And in 2019, it just kind of kind of came out.
That third verse also reminded me of one of my favorite songs and everything along those lines. I was wondering if you ever heard that comparison as well, because one of my favorite songs, some people don't like it because it has an anti-religious bent, or some people think it has an anti-religious bent. But when I heard that third verse, I automatically thought of John Lennon's "Imagine," which is definitely got a similar like verse and everything like that. But
imagine a different kind of world than the one we live in. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it's certain that the theme of that song is certainly influenced by Lennon. I've got another song on that album called "I Dreamt of John Lennon."
I saw that song.
And I kid you not, on July 15th, 2020, during the pandemic, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had this dream that Eric Clapton had found an old tape of a John Lennon song. And then somehow Eric Clapton called me to come in the studio and work with him on it. So anyway, but I wrote this song in the dream, and I woke myself up consciously and told myself the chords and wrote down as many of the lyrics as I could remember from the dream. And when I started playing the chords that I had written down, it was exactly like it was in the dream.
Wow.
So I've got this song, "I Dreamt of John Lennon," and literally 90% of that song is from the dream that I had on, again, July 15th, 2020.
Wow. Raphael, in that same line, how much do you find inspiration in your dreams and in your connection to the ancestors? I'm a big believer in ancestors. You talked about my parents, but my grandmother was also the first librarian in terms of creating a Black library in Raleigh, North Carolina, and everything like that. And I'm sure my dad probably referenced that in some of his interview as well. But she created the Richard B. Harrison Library, and this year, or actually last year, they created an award named after her, and all along those lines. So there have been some people that they gave. The first award was given last year, and there'll now be continued awards until they stop giving the awards and everything like that. So hopefully that'll be never. But we'll see how that goes. Everything. But how has maybe you've been asleep and something came to you about a film you were working on?
Yeah, sometimes things happen and you can't put words into it until maybe a friend puts words into it, and or you hear a song like John's, or you read a book like Wayne's, and it's framed, correctly, and it puts structure into feelings and sentiments. A good friend last week said something to me. Alexis Gumps, she's author, an incredible poet and author here in Durham. She said we are the incarnation of our seventh generation back of our ancestors. And when I look back, for example, at my great grandfather, he was like one of the first Peruvians to start a film photo studio in Lima, Peru. I had no idea, but there's those draws to that storytelling that runs in ancestrally. So there's things that you as you grow older you start finding, and it's through those. I think when you're young, you're a child. Those feelings are uninterrupted. They're raw. So you're able to dream. You're in that, and that rawness of those emotions, those sentiments, expression. Like people have said, I think corporate America does silence that, and minimize and makes it. Infantilizes it in a way that it's wrong, and when you're able to tap back, your art flourishes, and I mean, and honestly, I think corporate America does it extracts those ideas, and then it puts it into its own money making systems, and you can see that with many art forms, from jazz to hip hop, even filmmaking, an extractivist way of dealing with art that we see today. But there's always been a pushback around that. I think this show is a pushback around that. Able to conversate and share ideas and think about things in a different way, make connections. All those are so important, so important. In a world where AI is more and more, building algorithms so that you are in your own head with your own thoughts and really, a potential to connect, but really, it really, makes it singular, your experience, where 3, 4 people can be in the same room and have completely different understanding of the world because, it's been formed. And then that's a very dangerous, I think, way in which things are being formed that does attack this natural creativity of sharing and evolving and really exploring, making mistakes, trying it again, so we I think with the story of Jerry Ann King Johnson, a lot of one of the themes that runs through it is this going back to landowning in the sense of farming, going back to how do we look at the things that maybe we took for granted that are no longer here, and how do we replicate that even within the structures that are here, modify them so that it has the same effect, of acting locally, but thinking globally. I always like that you work in your community, but you think of your family as Earth, as the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as you were saying that, I was thinking that there's a lot of people that get concerned. And I know that John has dealt with it because I've had the conversation with Brett and others as well with what are considered cultural vampires. So they're people that will kind of like assimilate and take over certain art forms, but not really understand the nature of the art form. And therefore they become cultural vampires and all along those lines. So I know that that's something that artists have to deal with as well, is trying to realize who they are and kind of like go against those influences, because those can be very negative influences as well, those cultural vampires that are out there.
Absolutely. And there's a film I'm working on. There's my Elevate Media, so the production company I own, are one of our films. It's called right now it's changed from My Existence is Resistance to Dora Show, where we're covering the life and history of Cayenne Dora Show, who's a Black trans abolitionist up in New York, and her job is to get a lot of the people that are transgender, non-binary, identity out of jails, and as their experience is horrendous. Everybody's experience is horrendous in jail, but they're specifically this hate and violence around trans people, and yeah, it's just when you look at the history of just even house music, of just culture that now it's practiced. It comes from those circles, where they were designing and trying out cultures, dances, way of speaking that now become the norm, and the roots are always forgotten, so it's important to make sure that we validate and celebrate, our as a human family, our transgender community, our non-binary LGBTQAI plus community, in times where now it's becoming very dangerous for them, it's very dangerous for our families in that sense, and yes, and then our work also needs to celebrate, but in a way protect as well, those that are at most in danger.
Yeah, we definitely got to protect. Yeah, I know that there is this notion that there is great Peruvian restaurants around here, and some of them I really like, and some of them I sometimes wonder if they're not like the McDonald's or the Fosters of the world, meaning that those of you folks that are from Peru going like, that's not really good Peruvian food, even though y'all think it's good Peruvian food and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on some of these Peruvian restaurants that are out there, because I know there are a couple of them that people are big fans of, and some I've seen things like they are authentic, and some of them might be the McDonald's or the Foster's version. I can use the Australian example and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, Peruvian food. My brother's a chef, Miguel Seminas. He's a chef actually in New York City, and who helped me start the food cart. And he worked for Gaston Acurio, which is one of the top chefs in Lima, Peru. And so he worked at his La Mar restaurant when it was open in Madison Avenue over there in New York City. And so I'm used to, especially my mom who passed away last year. She was a cook, and she, before transitioning, she passed that Peruvian cooking legacy to my wife. I like to say I cook, but I think my brother took all the good genes when it comes to that. Food is here in Raleigh is where we're at. Is Peruvian cuisine is very good. I mean, it's not as many as somewhere like New York or Washington D.C., but I like a good chicken and alpaca when or Mami Noras is around the corner. It's delicious. And I think at a time where it was interesting because when ICE, Immigration Customs Reforms, was here, they were attacking those places. They were setting up around those places, and for me it was just just to think about how the most anti-violent aspects of any culture, food and music, and it brings people together, and that those were vilified, and a lot of restaurants here were having a lot of issues around people not coming in. So, it's I think just my plug is to try to support, your local at this moment, your mom and pops, places that are especially in immigrant, and Black-owned businesses. I think that it's important to us support as much as we can at this moment where they're going through a lot of difficulties.
They're definitely going through some difficulties. I remember when I was, two things. One, I can identify with your story about not getting the cooking genes, and I'll explain that because it has to do with John's background and everything like that. But I used to live, when I was dating a young lady who's still in Raleigh and everything like that, and she was a theater person, and she literally lived around the corner from Mama Nora. So Mama Nora's became an addiction to me and everything along those lines. So it can be very addictive and everything like that. So I know the restaurant you're talking about because I literally live around the corner, and I think I probably averaged eating there at one point maybe 2 or 3 times a day and everything. So it definitely became a addictive form of a place to drop off and everything along those lines. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that particular restaurant. But John, you'll get a kick out of this. My brother, who I don't think Rafael has met yet, even though he's met some of my other family members, as he just mentioned when he was interviewing them about the radio station. But my brother is actually a pretty decent cook. He's done a lot of work with his group that deals with the slingshots, the car, not the old-fashioned weapon and everything like that. The slingshot Polaris is, and he's a MS fighter and everything along those lines. But he is a pretty good cook and everything. But the reason he's a good cook is because when there's a 7-year gap between me and Malik. So I am now 63, and he just turned 56, and his kids, my nephews, the first one's getting ready to go off to college. But when he was a kid himself, I think he was maybe around I want to say 4 or 5, maybe something around that age, and I was 12. My parents, when we were living in Warrenton, had a bookshelf, and the bookshelf had the cookbooks on it. So he climbed onto the oven, got me the cookbook, handed me the cookbook. So I read him the cookbook while he cooked, which is why he's good at cooking and I'm good at reading and media and everything like that. So we were working in our fields at the time, even though he's not a cook by trade. He's actually worked with that rescues and all along those lines. But I can relate to not having that particular cooking gene because somebody else got it in the family. So I know that my dad's a good cook. Malik's a much better cook than I am. I can definitely follow instructions and can manage some decent cooking, but I would not call myself a chef in the least bit. But I was reading him that cookbook and everything like that, so I can relate to that whole story and everything.
Right.
So we're getting ready to wrap up because I got another show comes up at 6:00, which is the Plan to Prosper show. It used to be on Tuesday, but we've moved it to Wednesdays now. And I try to do this between an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with all of you gentlemen, including Will, who was here earlier. But I'm going to give y'all the same opportunity that I gave Will. And I'll start with you, Wayne, and everything all those lines. So if you can say a word of positivity that you'd like to share with our global network, anything that you didn't get to that you would have liked to have gotten to, and everything along those lines, and how you can be contacted. That's how we'll wrap up the show. And I've also got an education video, so I may ask y'all's views about teachers, which will be the absolute end. But if you'll just tell me your word of positivity and anything that you didn't get to that you would have liked to have gotten to, and how folks can reach you.
Two things. I wanted to leave something for John. You don't have to call me darling. You never even call me by my name, Mr. Prine.
Mm-hmm.
And second, the best way to get a hold of me is waynepratt.ca, WAYNEPRATT.ca. And I'd love to meet anyone who thought this was fun. And I'd love to be more positive, more helpful, and let anybody be all they can be. Thanks.
Appreciate it. John, I'll go to you, and then I'll close out with Raphael. But John, how would you? What words of encouragement do you have for the audience, and what do you want to say that you might not have got to about your music or just life in general? And of course, everybody's welcome to come back on these shows again. Sometime we'll have guests that make return trips.
Yeah, thank you. So you can contact me. My email address is johnprincestudios@gmail.com. I'm revamping my entire website so that's inaccessible at this point. And I think that I said the word persist earlier, and I think that's, whether it's an artist or whatever goal that anybody has, persistence, and the other P word, patience. Those have to go together, and there's really no meaningful shortcuts to get to the goal. There's a lot of hard work. In our culture, we kind of see the gold, the gilded final product that's put up there as this gold standard. But there's a lot of hard work, tears, pain, blood, sweat that all go into that. And so persist and be patient with yourself.
That makes sense. Raphael, what is anything that you want to let folks know that you didn't get to and everything like that, your words of positivity, as well as how you can be contacted as well?
Sure. Just to be watching out for Moonchild that's coming out, in 2026. We want to have a very strong local showing in different places, Carolina Theater, as well as community organizations and such, that have a very strong social impact of the history and of jazz and just Black Durham history around music, jazz, and culture. It's just incredible. And so be on the lookout for that. And I can be contacted at Raphael, Rafael, at elevatemediafilms.com. So elevatemediafilms with an S.com. We're here together at a time where things are really, really, I would say, violent, brutal outside, not just in the US, but worldwide, what's happening. And I'm sure it can immobilize many people. It can stunt, it can depress. But I'd like to say that just to really emphasize how important each of our works is at the moment, and how important it is to really take that step forward in continuing the work, as John said, persistence, or if it's the time where you feel that you want to, be activated, whether it's community organizing, whether it's film, whether it's music, and really step into that. It's just a time that's so important right now, and things are building to quash that. So any work that is rooted in love, is rooted in human connection, is right now at utmost important to be done.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm going to close out with a video about the importance, and it's an award that was started in Oklahoma and everything, but it honors not just teachers, but it also honors the support staff, which includes like guidance counselors, I would even say janitors and cafeteria workers, and a number of others as well. And I know that that's part of the reason the network was formed, was around education as well. So as before I play this video, and that'll be the video that gets us out of here and everything like that, how important has education been to your own careers, and were there important people like a guidance counselor, or maybe somebody that was in the office like a resource officer, or somebody that was not a quote unquote traditional teacher that was the teacher for you in your lives and everything like that? So I'll start with you, Raphael, and how important was education, and I'll close with Wayne, and then I'll play this video. We'll get on out of here.
Yeah, education. I mean, it's again that storytelling aspect of things. It has been utmost important from a formalized education, from teachers I've had like Martina Radwan, who just won an Oscar, and teachers like Andrea Wise and Greta Schiller, who run the film program at the City College of New York, and really be in a situation where I can learn from them. It's almost like a shortcut, to absorbing their experiences, but also equally is the non-academia experience and lessons of meeting other people whose life experience, and friendships and love has taught and informed, who I am as a person. I think those are, you could say, equally or even more valuable, to making one do what we want to do in life, whether it's an artist, whether it's any field. But those really recognizing those relationships, and if they're still around, those people that did influence, it's, I think, important to tell them. Important to let them know they had that impact on you, because you might have that impact on other people, and it's not a matter of ego. It's a matter of celebrating those people that gave you, that information, that belief, that power, and letting them know, so and so that they can also feel, that their contribution to the world through you.
Yeah, no doubt about that. How about you, John? Anybody that was an important influence in terms of the teachers of the world, and you are a teacher yourself, and also, like I said, sometimes the teachers aren't necessarily the traditional teachers. It might be the janitor or the secretary that has an important teaching role, or some of the other people that are in the school system.
Right, and of course, I'm still in education as a profession, so it certainly had an impact on me. And my sixth grade teacher was an incredible force on me, not directly as far as education, just as a teacher, as a mentor kind of person. But the teaching and coaching are twin sisters, I think. I mean, a good coach is a good teacher, and a good teacher is a good coach. And I think the word that Wayne used earlier was uplifting, and that's what good teachers and good coaches do, is they uplift their students, they uplift their athletes, they uplift the people that they're trying to impart some knowledge and information to.
No doubt about it. Wayne, you can close out, and then I'll play this video and get us on out of here. But your thoughts around teachers?
This uncoordinated fat boy had a gym teacher that poured into me like it was no tomorrow, and 50 years later, I'm still getting value.
No doubt about that. That's a great analogy and everything, and I can relate to that. I was a bad athlete. I was a person that ran track and lost every race, but I got a lot of networking and other connections through going through that. And the coach had a very interesting philosophy. He ran you, he ran you, he ran you, and he ran you. And if you survived, you were on the team. And from that, I then went on to do a lot of networking. So I learned some of my networking skills through that, because he was just going to run you to death. And if you didn't quit, then you were on the team. So I think that was the whole notion of the way they selected that particular team there in Warrenton and all along those lines. So we're going to play this video, get us on out of here. It's been fun talking to all four of you gentlemen. I know definitely Will had to leave earlier, and I hope to catch y'all on another episode of the Online Dinner Party on another time. So right now, let's get on out of here with this particular video, and I'll catch y'all on another time as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I think a lot of insights were given. I think a lot of people learned a lot. So hopefully I'll catch y'all in IRL, as they say in the internet world, as well as in the back online as well. So right now, we're going to check out this video and get on out of here.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you, for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you, I thank you, for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.